Yuji was an underappreciated but overworked corporate zombie, till one day he was sent to another world where he became an OP slime sage. He woke up as a low-level bottom-of-the-barrel bottom feeder with the taming skill and no magic. He accidentally grabbed a handful of slime and somehow managed to tame it. The monster led him through the forest to a cabin filled with books. He picked up an ancient grimoire and gained the skills to use the magic of all four elements, which surprised him because all he did was glance at the front page. That ability is every school kid's dream. Yuji was soon ambushed by more slimes who wanted him to tame them. He did so, and they began to read all the books in the cabin, causing Yuji to gain new skills faster than how Elon Musk's net worth rises. By the end of the intense readathon, he got the title of Sage and could understand what his army of slimes were saying. He later made his way to the town of Faston and registered for the Adventurers Guild, which was standard in these kinds of isekai situations. He had to undergo the registration exam, and his extraordinariness begun to show when his vast magic broke the measuring orb. The sage then demonstrated silent wandless magic, which left the examiner speechless, but he almost fainted when Yuji blew the giant boulder with a fireball spell that he chanted. The sage thought that their shock was because he was so weak, but the examiner told him that he was rather too strong. He took a request to gather some drya flowers after getting his license. While in the forest, he stumbled on an unconscious tree spirit called Dryad. He helped her by transferring some of his magic to her. She thanked him and revealed that someone left a magic stone in the forest which had drained her power. Yuji dispelled the offending stone, but this triggered a mass of monsters to burst out of it. He sharply contained them in a barrier and destroyed the threat. Dryad was thankful for the help and gave him a ton of drya flowers as a show of gratitude. Yuji proceeded through the forest where he encountered Proud Wolf. The giant canine was hostile and tried to attack him, but he apprehended it with a net and used monster telepathy to listen to Proud Wolf's pathetic plea for his life. Yuji showed mercy and decided to tame him instead. While on his way back to town, he was attacked by another monster, but he used his slimes to defeat it with a well-placed fireball. Yuji turned away and missed the magic stone laying close by. Unfortunately, a horde of monsters were about to erupt from it. During that interval, Gale got teased at the guild when he tried to tell people about the fire-breathing slime he encountered. No one believed him because slimes were considered weak monsters and didn't have that ability. Their attention was drawn when Yuji entered. The receptionist assumed he couldn't get any drya flowers since they were rare. She quickly realized that she was wrong when he ordered his slime to bring out the bunch of flowers he collected. Everyone was stunned by the quantity and the ability of the slime. The receptionist quickly rushed to call the guildmaster. He stated that it was enough flowers to last them 2 years. From the reports, the guildmaster knew that Yuji was not an ordinary tamer. The examiner frantically barged into the hall to inform them that there had been monster sightings in the woods. Yuji asked his slimes for more information. They revealed that there were a lot of them, and they were heading to the town. The examiner estimated them to be 10,000 in number. The guildmaster told the adventurers about the dire situation and warned them to escape. The members refused and demanded to stay and protect the people of the town. The boss didn't think there was a way for them to win. Just as despair was about to set in, Yuji piped up stating that he had an idea. They initially dismissed him because he was a tamer, until his slime brought out a dragon bone. Yuji informed them that he could use it to recreate a dragon's flame, which would wipe out all the monsters. Everyone was skeptical about his claim, but Gale took a closer look at the slime and realized that it was the creature he saw shooting fire, so he pled with the guildmaster to listen to Yuji's plan. The adventurers took their position and were given healing potions made with the drya flowers. During that interval, Yuji took a vantage point and got his monsters into position as the adventurers rained down spikes on the incoming creatures. It was not enough to stop them from breaching their defenses, so they had to engage the monsters in melee combat. All the while, Yuji opened his system and had multiple screens open like a forex trader. As he prepared his spells, Dryad informed him of a strange, hooded man with a lantern walking through the forest. Yuji got a visual and noticed that he had a magic stone. He coordinated with Dryad and used his slimes to capture the culprit before disarming the stone. The hooded guy self-doomed when he realized that he was caught. Meanwhile, Yuji vindicated Gale's claims when his slimes assisted the adventurers by shooting fireballs at the monsters. The sage then gave the order for everyone to return to the town. Proud Wolf helped Gale and the examiner repel one more monster before dragging them to safety. Yuji erected a barrier around the town because the number of creatures began to get overwhelming. He used the town as the central point of his fire attack. As he unleashed it, everyone was stunned as they had never seen such powerful magic in their lives and couldn't believe it came from a tamer. The explosion wiped out most of the creatures, but some survived. Yuji had already overused his mana, but he mustered enough power to unleash another explosion that finished off the remaining monsters, but he collapsed. As a result, The guildmaster went into the charred forest where they found the lantern and the magic stone. He had his suspicions as soon as he saw the items. Yuji later regained consciousness and was greeted with a hot bowl of soup by the receptionist. She was so happy to see him awake. The town celebrated their victory and were waiting for their hero to join them. The hero left Faston as soon as he got the chance because he didn't want to cause a scene. The following morning, the receptionist reported Yuji's departure to the guildmaster. He updated her on the strange man and the artifacts found near his deceased body. He was sure that this was the work of the Blue Moon Salvation cult they had been warned about. The guildmaster had already sent his report to their HQ. Yuji had one of his slimes linger around, so he heard the conversation. As that was going on, the sage had arrived at the next town, and somewhere nearby, a strange dragon had awoken. Yuji entered the town of Kelia and was oblivious that a bounty had been put on his head by someone. The sight of him with his monsters caught the locals' attention. His creatures saw meat they wanted, so he bought some for them to enjoy. Yuji later made his way to Kilia's Adventurers Guild to register to work. The receptionist initially told him that he couldn't register because of his garbage tamer skill, but she realized that he had the ability to track enemies. She revealed that a party who had someone with tracking skills had their death rate drop by 80%, so their guild registered such people without hesitation. He headed to the job board and ended up joining a party with Rhodus, Tina, and Lisa. Rhodus looked down on Yuji because of his tamer skill and didn't want a weakling around, but the girls were more positive about his tracking ability, as it would mean they could avoid monsters. The party took a job which required them to find the nest of the Earth Dragon and report its location. The girls commented on the rumors of Rhodus's last team going missing. The guy denied this, which made the girls laugh. They set up their formation before going into the forest. Yuji was left in the rear and tasked with scanning the area for monsters. He used his creatures to scout ahead, and they found some beasts 2 kilometers in front of the party. The girls were shocked that Yuji's skill worked from so far away. Rhodus dashed ahead and commended Yuji when he saw the monsters. He pulled out his dual daggers and swiftly dealt with the creatures alone. Yuji was surprised by Rhodus's strength. The group later set up camp and Rhodus outlined the watch rotation. Yuji went to bed when Proud Wolf woke him up because Rhodus suddenly left his watch post. The tamed monsters chased after him. Turned out that Tina was also suspicious of the watch schedule he set. She and Lisa were also following him. Rhodus went over when he heard a sound and got on high alert. The guy threw his dagger and hit one of the slimes, but Yuji used monster stealth to help it slip away unharmed. Rhodus proceeded through the traps set by his comrades and arrived at their hideout in the woods. Yuji sent one of his slimes closer so that he could listen in on their conversation. It soon became clear that Rhodus normally lured his party to the forest and had his true comrades capture and ransom them off. He would then return to the guild and report them missing. Rhodus knew that the girls were on his tail and would be arriving at the hideout. The criminals were also tasked with taking out Yuji, so they decided to leave him to meet his end at the hands of the monsters since they thought he was weak. The boss wanted them to make their seizure fast because the cult told him that disaster would fall when the moon turned blue. He almost crushed one of his subordinates for not believing it. The girls set off one of the sound traps and tensely waited to engage the criminals. Luckily for them, Proud Wolf and the slimes came together to create a silhouette of a strange creature. The boss told them to fall back because he didn't want to risk facing the unknown. Yuji used an ice spell to freeze the whole hideout. The slimes then collected the frozen criminals to the girls' shock. They recognized that the boss was a wanted man with a high bounty. The ladies were ready to return to town since they had lost a fighting member of the party. Yuji insisted they complete their mission because he could use his slimes to help them avoid most encounters. He found the girls to be trustworthy, so he was comfortable working with them. He threw his slime in the air to find a good spot for them to set up a new camp. They were amazed when the tamed monsters set everything up. The girls got some rest while Yuji kept watch. He pondered on the boss's remark about how Calamity came beneath the blue moon. He was sure that the cult was behind the attack on Faston. The following day, the party were well rested, so they continued their search for the Earth Dragon. They didn't see any signs that it passed through their current location. A strange gust of wind ripped through the area, and it was revealed to originate from Delight Canyon, which is also known as the Valley of the Wind. The burst of wind came rushing down the mountains in random intervals. Legends say it was the Earth Dragon's breath, but we all know it was Giant Gear 5 Luffy's fart. Tina, however, didn't think that was likely. The trio proceeded through the forest, and Lisa hyped up Yuji after seeing what he did to the bandits, but he thought that she was overestimating his abilities. He didn't want to perform any more abnormal feats, so he cast a spell on himself that limited his magic output. He tested it out on the creatures his slimes encountered, and his attacks now dealt more believable damage. he was still impressed by how effective it was. He confessed to dealing with the monsters when Tina pointed out their lack of confrontations. The girls were stunned that his slimes could defeat such creatures, but their amazement was cut short when the sky suddenly turned purple. At the town, Guildmaster Rayard asked Priest Stale what it meant. He clutched his book and recited the ancient statement that Calamity came beneath the blue moon. The sky suddenly cleared when the blue dragon landed in the area. As it let out a deafening shriek, Yuji sensed the danger and ordered his creatures to vacate the area. He informed the ladies that it was a much larger and more powerful dragon than the Earth Dragon. The girls got worried that this could be a disaster, so they rushed into the Wind Valley. Tina disclosed that it was a safe zone for people since monsters mostly kept away because of the gusts of wind. Yuji wanted to be safe, so he ordered Proud Wolf to run ahead with the slimes, just in case they find some monsters in the valley, so they could deal with them. The gust of wind made them pause for a moment as they found the little cave it was emanating from. They continued ahead, where the slime saved the wolf from a bear while they exited the valley. During that interval, the girls were impressed with the slime's handiwork as Yuji was informed that the path was cleared for them. It's like the Earth Dragon heard their message and decided to spawn. The ground shook as it emerged. The ladies quickly found a hiding spot and called Yuji crazy for thinking he could solo the monster. The sage tried to stop its charge with some rock attacks, but it didn't work. Luckily for him, another gust of wind ripped through the valley, so he used it as an opportunity to unleash his huge fire spell, which incinerated the Earth Dragon. The girls were too busy protecting themselves to see the attack. They were only met with the bones of the dragon when the gust passed. Yuji agreed with Tina's explanation that he used the ores buried just below the surface as fuel to amplify his fire attack. The party returned to the guild with their report, and the receptionist almost fainted when she heard that they defeated the Earth Dragon. One of the slimes spewed out the creature's skull as proof. Rayard received word of the appearance of the blue dragon. He pulled Yuji to the side just after the sage took his reward for defeating the dragon and taking out the wanted criminals. The guildmaster called a meeting to discuss the appearance of the blue fire drake. Yuji was told to give a description of the monster. He did one better and used magic to draw a picture of it for all to see. Stale the priest opened his book, and it had a similar picture inside. It narrated that the last time the dragon paid their world a visit, it wiped out a continent in 3 days. Most people present didn't believe that there was a monster with such a catastrophic nature. Rayard wanted to know how they were to defeat such a creature. The priest disclosed that a hero with the power that rivaled their gods was said to have defeated the beast. The guildmaster was sure they could find such a person in their current era. This triggered Rayard to recall that the church in the capital performed a ritual during an eclipse 30 years ago. It was supposed to take effect 30 years in the future, which was about a week ago. Rayard thought that the blue dragon appeared because something went wrong. Stale confirmed the ritual and revealed that it was supposed to summon a spirit to deal with the calamity. The church had not seen any sign that it was successful. Yuji knew it worked because he arrived in this world 1 week ago. The members of the meeting worry when the skies turned purple again. The slimes informed Yuji that the dragon just grew. He informed those in the meeting that there was a link between the sky turning purple and the growth of the dragon. Rayard couldn't sit there and wait for their demise in 3 days, so he suggested they attack the dragon with everything in their arsenal. After the meeting, Yuji got food and was met by the girls who had joined the squad to fight the dragon. They were sure they would be fine if Yuji was with them and were also excited that they were going to get paid a bonus for it. Stale asked Yuji to come with him to the church. He formally introduced himself and said he was guided by their deity to bring along an ancient dagger. The clergy couldn't grasp the value of the relic, but he believed that Yuji would find it useful. The sage took it, and the system informed him that it was called the Dagger of Kethis. It was a blessed weapon with unknown origins that was unbreakable. Yuji was confused as to why he gave it to him. The priest just told him that the divine deemed it so. The sage later got some rest when one of his slimes alerted him that the dragon had gotten bigger. Yuji decided to put his power to the test by trying to defeat the ancient creature. He raced through the forest riding Proud Wolf till they arrived at the location of the dragon. Yuji instructed all his slimes to fall back and used one of them to shoot a powerful fire attack. It hit its target but did little damage. Ironically, the system informed him that the creature's weakness was fire and holy magic. The alert meant that the level of his attack was too low. The dragon retaliated by firing beams all over the place. Yuji managed to block just in time, but the monster had grown as it absorbed the magical energy of the forest. The sage pulled out the Dagger of Kethis, and the slimes called it a dinky little weapon as they tried to stop him from attacking with it. Little did they know that it had the characteristic to focus the wielder's magic abilities at the tip of the blade. Yuji planned to concentrate the firepower of his blast spell to increase its damage. He dashed down with his familiars to get closer. The dragon continued its assault, but Yuji blocked it again. He then used a combination of skills to leap up and land a strike on one of the monster's eyes. He unleashed the concentrated fire attack which blew the dragon out of the sky, but it used its tail to smack Yuji as it fell. He narrowly protected himself as he crashed into the cliff. His mana was in the red after that exchange. Unfortunately for him, the dragon was back in the sky and fired a concentrated energy beam at him. The sage erected a shield and was barely hanging on. He knew he needed just one more hit to win this battle. He opened the system and noticed that a spell called Divine Strike would be available in less than a minute. Yuji summoned it as soon as the timer hit 0. The attack rained down and stunned the dragon. The sage called Proud Wolf to his side and raced to the landing site of the ancient creature, and before it could recover, he took off its head with a slice-infused fire blast. The essence of the dragon rained down on the forest floor and started to grow mushrooms. Yuji casually went back to town to rest. The following morning, Rayard came to inform him that the blue dragon was defeated by someone the previous night. Apparently, the priest got this information from their deity, but he had already left Kelia so they couldn't get more details. He didn't tell anyone where his next destination was. The guild master suspected it was Yuji who defeated the Calamity and told him to ask for help occasionally. The sage tried to act oblivious. Yuji later met up with the girls for a meal. They recommended he visit the town of Ricardo next because it was a warm, comfortable place with the best food. He set off for his next destination and was waved off by the girls. He left some of his slimes behind to monitor the place. Dryad later told him to meet her at the location where he defeated the blue dragon. She showed him the mushrooms and wanted him to help her gather them. Yuji gave the order, and his slime familiars harvested all of them in record time. Dryad wanted to make some special potions for him. She could create sage elixirs with the red ones, and high-level mana restoration potions with the blue ones. Yuji even used his magic to help her refine the potions. During the process, he noticed that the liquid had the same color as the magic stones. Dryad guessed that the stones were infused with dragon's grace. It was a special sort of power that could only be found at the site of a fallen dragon. The powerful magic left behind grew the potent mushrooms which could be used for good or evil, depending on the wielder's intention. Dryad gave him some sage and mana restoration potions as promised. Before returning to her forest, Yuji continued to Ricardo when he encountered a sudden fog and a strange settlement along the way. The residents came out with creepy smiles. The leader of the village welcomed him and offered him a struggle meal. Yuji was on his way to a gourmet destination and didn't want to ruin his taste buds, so he rejected the food. The leader was relieved to hear that he was going to Ricardo but passed through their village thanks to the fog. As soon as Yuji excused himself, we find out that the residents are members of the Blue Moon Salvation cult. The so-called village chief went to report the sage's visit to his superior. Their plan to extract the blue dragon's grace from the valley was on track. They wanted to use it to cleanse their tainted world. All the while, Yuji arrived at Ricardo, and it was covered in snow. He was sure that this was not normal, as it was supposed to be a warm place. He erected an insulation barrier to keep themselves warm as they made their way to the front gate. The guard was surprised by how lightly dressed he was. He disclosed that the weather changed about 10 days ago and has eliminated a few residents. Yuji confessed he had come because he heard that the food was worth the trip. The guard directed him to the tavern called the Tiger's Flame Pavilion. He made his way there and was greeted by the server. She informed him that they were closed indefinitely because the firewood they normally use to cook is being used for heating. Yuji knew that the food at this establishment would be amazing just from the setup. He refused to let some sudden snow stop him from tasting one of their meals. The server told him that the wood needed had to be dried for a year, so going out to chop some now would not help. Yuji kept this in mind and went to the forest. He summoned an axe and used the super combat art skill to chop down a bunch of trees with one swing. Even he was stunned by how impressive the results were. He then processed the wood and had his slimes absorb the moisture from it, which instantly dried it out. They quickly stored it all before they returned to the tavern. The server was amazed that he managed to dry it so well in such a short period of time. She presented it to the chef who inspected it, but he concluded that it was too dry. This would produce a flame that would be too intense to cook with. Yuji gave the lumber to his slime and asked it to add some moisture back into it. He returned it to the chef, who got excited because it suddenly became the perfect piece of firewood for cooking. He had never seen such wood in his life, so he told the server to get the stoves lit. The chef didn't try to understand how he produced such kindling, but he was confident that he could use it to make a special meal, and Yuji loved the sound of that. He got his slime to discharge all the wood he processed, and the tavern staff were gobsmacked by the creature's abilities. The slimes added the perfect amount of moisture to bring them to cooking standard, Yuji was willing to go out to cut some more firewood for them. The chef heard his stomach rumble, so he prepared a meal for him to eat first. The grilled steak was presented to him, and he entered a zen state when he ate it because it was so good. The old man told him that their best dish was a stew, but it took some time to cook. Yuji was looking forward to having it the next day. He stopped by the guild and only found requests for chopped wood on the job board. He registered at the branch and took the job. The receptionist directed him to go see Wadka the firewood leader to learn the specifications when processing the wood. He joined the other loggers, and they were stunned when he lopped a bunch of trees with one swing. Wadka was speechless as he watched the sage perfectly process the wood. He had prepared hundreds of pallets of lumber by the end of the shift. It was so much that the guild found it difficult to find storage for it all. Yuji later cut enough for the whole town to keep warm till this issue subsided. He was paid well for his work and got to finally taste the stew after a few days of hard work. His familiars were also giving high-end meat as a show of gratitude for their efforts. Yuji couldn't believe the flavor of the stew and polished the dish in record time. The old cook told him that this was not his best work, for that he would need to regain access to their herb field which had been plagued by monsters recently. The sage wanted to taste it, so he set off to deal with the issue. He quickly coordinated his familiars to defeat the monsters, but they found a strange orb. Dryad joined them as they inspected it. She could sense faint traces of magic emanating from it, and it absorbed Yuji's magic as soon as he touched it. He quickly figured out that the orb contained Dragon's Grace, and was what the cursed magic stones were made of. Dryad noted that the magic in the area was weak because the stone was absorbing it all. This explained the cold weather. Places with less energy tended to be colder, and the opposite was true for areas with too much magic. She also informed Yuji that someone made the orb because they didn't appear naturally. Traces of human magic were also found in the sphere. Yuji dispelled it, and instructed his familiars to search the area for more. After their survey, they found over 100 spread in a perfect circle. The sage was sure that they would find something in the middle of the circle, so they followed the map there. The area looked normal, but he felt like something was off. So he ripped his blast spell, which left a giant crater. They found an underground entrance when the dust settled. Yuji was determined to investigate if it meant saving Ricardo. All the sage wanted to do was eat more of their excellent food. The sage kicked the hatch open and hopped down with his slimes. Dryad was told to go deep into the forest for safety because he was not sure what they would find in the facility. Yuji was surprised by the advanced machinery as they passed through. He didn't think that such tech existed in this world. They stumbled into rooms which had magic stones connected to some devices. He wondered if this was the place they were made. Yuji quickly hid when two men rushed in. He recognized their capes as it matched the one the strange guy in the woods wore. The duo went to report the malfunction to their superior. The sage let his slimes tail them in stealth mode while he went to the surface to investigate. It led both groups to the creepy village, and upon listening to the men's report to the village leader, Yuji concluded that they belonged to the cult. The village leader was stunned to hear that the explosion they heard destroyed some of their infrastructure. This had left them with many incomplete stones. He gathered a group to go recover the remaining cursed magic ores. He didn't think that a human could create such a powerful explosion, so he speculated that it was a meteorite that destroyed their facility. The village leader gave them the order to eliminate witnesses if they encountered any during their retrieval, after which they would be moving to a different location since this one had been compromised. Before Yuji gave the order, his slimes had already encircled the village. They also captured the scouts that were sent out, and those guys chose to leave the world rather than give information. The slimes who had infiltrated the camp made their way into a study where they engulfed all the books and documents there. They also found a vault and gained access with the help of their master. The inside was full of treasures, so they cleared all of that. One of the members came in and started to panic when she found the room ransacked. The village leader realized that the thief was most likely the same person that caused the explosion. Yuji overheard them wondering if their attacker knew about a device called the Cleansing Flame. The village leader didn't want to risk being stopped. The device was set to erupt if those present met their demise. He felt this was their only option, and the others agreed. He stated that the flame would cleanse the world, and the slimes watched in horror as they triggered the explosion by going to the afterlife. Yuji evacuated his slimes as the place started to quake. He erected multiple barriers around the village to contain the explosion, but the black flames were too much. So he created a total isolation array and used excessive mana to suppress the blast. The whole area turned back to normal as soon as the dust settled. A huge crater was left in place of the village. He returned to town, and the residents were happy to see him safe after hearing all the explosions. They just assumed they were caused by meteorites, and attributed the thaw of the snow to their impact. A couple of days passed, and the town was back to its tropical weather. The inhabitants gathered at the tavern to celebrate the snow thawing. Yuji was the guest of honor because of his efforts in helping them fill up their firewood reserves. The chef also served him with the final version of the stew. Yuji lost consciousness when he tasted it because it was so good. He later woke up in his room and decided to read the documents his slimes recovered, but a spell was cast on them which made the information to disappear. One scroll survived, and it had a list of people the cult was looking to eliminate. Yuji found his name at the bottom. Meanwhile, Rudy and Sonya, who are assassins affiliated with the cult, wiped out one of the targets on the list, and they have their eyes set on Yuji next. The sage said goodbye to the small town of Ricardo as soon as he realized the danger he faced. The receptionist suggested he go to the place of Boginia next. It was famous for its monster armor, which was perfect for a tamer like Yuji. She also told him to visit Geigel's workshop, because he was a master craftsman. The sage set off, but the assassins had already tracked him down. Sonya wanted them to watch him for a while to determine if he would be a threat to their cult, and if he was, she would give him a painful end. Little did they know that Yuji was already aware of their presence and goal, so he played along and pretended to rest in the woods. Rudy wanted to use this as an opportunity to take him out, but Sonya gave him a deadly warning not to, so he stood down. All the while, Yuji had gathered the information he needed on them. However, he couldn't take them out while they were actively investigating him. The sage didn't want a bigger target put on his head. He soon arrived at Ricardo, where he portrayed himself as a broke, useless tamer who also had a drinking problem. He even went to Geigel's workshop and was sent away by his assistant because he pretended not to have the money to pay for the wares. He could see that Sonya was not convinced with his loser act, so he decided to take a job to exterminate some rush bulls. Rudy was not impressed because they were not strong monsters. Sonya thought it would be the perfect opportunity to assess Yuji's skills. The sage knew he was being watched, so he decided to fight like a typical tamer and let Proud Wolf face the monsters. The canine was scared at first but quickly gained confidence when he realized that he was stronger than his foes. He swiftly took down the monsters, which made Yuji look like a skilled tamer, so the sage discreetly used a spell to make the bulls stronger. Proud Wolf struggled but eventually defeated them with his own strength, as he refused to get help from his master. The assassins lowered Yuji's threat level again based on how long it took his familiar to take out such a simple monster. One of the bulls got up and dashed at Yuji. On instinct, he summoned a sword and effortlessly cut down the wild creature. He was sure that his cover had been blown, but the assassins still saw him as an ordinary tamer who was not a threat to their plan, so they left him alone. The sage got one of his slimes to follow them. Later that night, they reported their findings on Yuji to the cult boss and told him that the tamer was no problem. The boss informed them about the fall of the village due to the activation of the cleansing flame. He had his suspicions regarding who it was. The assassins were given their next target to eliminate, and it was Stale the priest. As soon as their meeting ended, Yuji cast an ice spell through his slime to freeze them since his name was cleared. He wanted to know why they would target a priest. The following morning, he went back to Geigel's workshop. The assistant prepared to sack him away because he was poor, but Geigel stopped his subordinate. But the real question is, why does the guy look like a character from Street Fighter? Whatever. He took one look at Yuji and his familiars and told his assistant that they are the strongest customers who had ever graced their shop. The master smith informed the sage that he didn't have any armor at a high enough level for his slimes. He let Yuji know that he could make it, but he had one problem. He looked at the active volcano nearby, and inside was a dragon. Geigel explained that the materials he had in his shop were too weak for the familiars. The assistant found that hard to believe since slimes and a proud wolf were not considered legendary creatures. The master disclosed that the combined power of Yuji and his familiars are the strongest party he had ever seen. They would need materials strong enough to suit them, so Geigel showed him a lesser fire dragon jewel. It was some of the best materials on the market. They are obtained by defeating lesser fire dragons, but these are still not strong enough to make armor for his familiars. There was a special breed of dragon called blue lesser fire dragons. The craftsman was sure that their jewel would be strong enough to hold up to the pet's powers. The dragons lived at the volcano, and encountering a lesser blue was rare. It was also difficult to defeat. Before Yuji left, he asked if normal fire dragons existed. Geigel confirmed it, but he had never heard of a single soul defeating one. Based on that, Yuji chose to concentrate on taking out a lesser blue. Geigel wasn't sure how successful he would be. The sage went to the local adventurers guild and took all the requests to defeat the lesser dragons. The receptionist let him know that the creatures were resistant to magic and physical attacks. The only way to defeat them was to use water. The local hunting party normally lugged the water needed with them when they went to face the monsters. Yuji assured the receptionist that he could use water magic. She didn't think it was possible for someone to conjure up the amount of water needed to take out a lesser dragon. The lady also warned him about the man-eating piranha that lived in the river that one must cross to get to the mountain. Yuji asked her to add the request to his pile. She gave up trying to highlight the danger and let him go. The sage set off and wondered if it was safe to get close to the active volcano. The slimes noticed a fire slime and headed down to ask it. It informed them that it was safe, so Yuji tamed the red monster. The party arrived at the edge of the river where he learned that his slimes couldn't swim, so he used magic to connect them to make a net. This allowed them to enter the water to look for the piranha. They found nothing at first till two slimes dived down a hole. They rushed back out soon after as they were getting chased by the piranha. The net captured the monster, prompting Yuji to pull it up. The sage tried to freeze it, but it broke free, so he unleashed a fire spell that cooked it to perfection. They proceeded further and encountered their first pack of lesser dragons. The slimes were frightened and told Yuji that their mother warned them to stay away from lesser fire dragons. The sage engaged it himself and flooded one with a water cannon spell. It collapsed and crumbled as it dropped the jewel. The slimes got confident when they saw how effortlessly he took it out, so they joined Yuji in dealing with the remaining creatures. The slimes found a lesser blue while cleaning up. Yuji told them to surround it, as he unloaded a river worth of water on the rare monster. It affected it as much as when you get a casual shower. Yuji then tried to freeze it with a medium ice spell, but it broke out, so he stacked 10 ice spells which managed to chill and defeat it. He then retrieved the jewel. The victory gave him the confidence to wipe out the remaining monsters present. They even encountered another lesser blue and took it out. The party returned to town, and the receptionist was amazed that he managed to clear all the requests. She made note of the fact that the piranha was deep underwater because it normally hunted at the surface. The cause of this strange behavior was going to be investigated by the survey team. Yuji went to see Geigel, and they were stunned that he managed to defeat a pair of lesser blues and over 200 lesser dragons. The craftsman was especially impressed by the quality of the jewel since they didn't have a single blemish. The master and student got to work, and after a short while, they completed the pieces of armor. It was Geigel's finest work, and he wanted to test it out. Proud Wolf and the slimes could now move at ridiculous speed. The craftsman told Yuji to use an attack spell. They couldn't believe their eyes when the sage erected a huge ice wall. He advised them to keep his power a secret. They returned to the workshop where Geigel reminded him not to use such powerful spells, otherwise it would break the jewel. The old man could make something stronger, but he would require the jewel of a fire dragon. The creature was so powerful that all it had to do was pop its head out of the volcano to put fear in everyone. Yuji went to his room to rest and was thinking about facing such a creature. The slimes reported that the lesser dragons were getting agitated. They were behaving in a manic way like the monsters at Faston. He recalled the cult boss stating that they were working on another plan. Proud Wolf and some slimes set off to find what was going on. Yuji was sure that the cult was behind this attack. He got his confirmation when his slime identified two people on the mountain. His attention was drawn by an explosion. He opened his window and found that the volcano had erupted, and the fire dragon emerged looking like a kaiju. Yuji was more worried about the two suspicious strangers. His slime informed him that they were walking to the fire dragon with some barrels. The familiar got closer, which allowed Yuji to hear what they were saying, and he confirmed that the dragon was their target. He also learned that their objective was given to them by their superiors in the town of Ordarion. Yuji wondered what was in the barrels, so he captured them with his magic net after 2 failed attempts. The duo revealed their ties to the cult when they voluntarily left this world. Yuji called Dryad to inspect the barrels, and she concluded that it was cursed water. It was not as strong as the magic stones, and the volume was not enough to defeat the fire dragon. However, it was just sufficient to excite the temper of the large monster. Yuji purified it and told Dryad to return to her home. The innkeeper interrupted to inform Yuji to get to safety before the rain came. The whole town was doing the same. He revealed that half a century ago, the fire dragon emerged during a rainstorm like the one they are about to experience. It got enraged by the water and burned the town. After hearing the story, Yuji went to confront the fire dragon before things got worse. He wanted to see if the 2 rivers that ran between the town and the volcano would be able to stop the legendary creature. It screamed in agony as it passed through the first river. It created so much steam that the area felt like a sauna. The tamer tried to stop the fire dragon before it reached the next river, but it counted all his ice attacks and proceeded. Yuji anticipated this, so he had his slime hold back the river water further upstream and released it when the dragon entered the second river. The giant wave of water overwhelmed the creature, and it seemed like it was defeated as it lay belly down like that one friend that always parties too hard. The familiar celebrations were cut short when the dragon suddenly got up and spat out fire. Yuji was quick enough to erect a barrier to protect them. The ancient monster followed up with a more intense fire breath. Yuji had to look through his list of spells and used a high-level permafrost curse attack. This countered the fire and froze the dragon along with the surrounding area. The familiars cheered as the monster crumbled. Yuji located the fire dragon jewel, which was huge. His slimes also drew his attention to a device that was in the rubble. The residents of Boginia returned when the area was determined to be safe. Yuji went to see Geigel and presented the fire dragon jewel. He didn't want to draw any attention to his abnormal feat, so the craftsman played along with the lie that it was a big, lesser fire dragon jewel. Geigel took it and promised to make something special. The tamer then went to the guild where he showed the receptionist the device he found. She recognized it was an artificial rain machine. Each guild had one to produce rain during droughts. She noticed that the guild which it belonged to was scratched off. Yuji suspected that it came from Ordarion. He later paid Geigel a visit when the piece of armor was completed. The old man was confident that it was legendary level. He told Yuji not to try it in town as it was not safe. The tamer thanked him for the work and refused to tell Geigel his name because he wanted to keep a low profile. Elsewhere, Walter, who was the boss of the cult branch that had been causing problems, performed a prayer asking for their god to grant him power. Yuji later arrived in Ordarion and made his way to the guild. He could sense the hostility when he entered. The guy played it cool, looked at the job board, and left without interacting with anyone. Some of the adventurers that belonged to the cult recognized him from the description they received. The tamer left one of his slimes behind to listen in on their conversation while he sipped a drink at the local tavern. He confirmed that they were the ones who got the artificial rain machine and were the masterminds behind the fire dragon attack that failed. The members wanted to inform Walter before taking any further action. Yuji's spying session came to an end when Stale and his assistant joined him. The priest took him to the church because the cult couldn't get them there. He already knew that the cult had infiltrated the Ordarion's Adventurers Guild. Stale wanted to discuss his past with Walter. The priest was a hard guy in his younger days and founded the Church of the Blue Moon. Most of his followers were outcasts and the downtrodden. Walter was among this group and was a man of extreme faith. The guy poured his soul into worshipping their deity. Everyone was so impressed with his devotion that he became the right-hand man of Stale. The priest didn't know that Walter had wild ambitions and didn't like the way he was running things. One day, Stale was given guidance by their deity to dismantle the group, but he didn't listen because he found a place to belong. Shortly after, Walter led a hostile takeover. Stale managed to escape, but at the expense of his friends' lives. Walter twisted the remaining followers' faith to suit his need and took their teachings to the extreme. Their main goal was to cleanse the world. That was when the Blue Moon of Salvation cult was born. Currently, Walter had taken over this town and used it as his base to achieve his wicked plans. Stale read a revelation he received that spoke about him regaining grace by guiding the sage to defeat the tainted light. The priest was sure that the cult was the tainted light that would lead the world into chaos, and Yuji was the sage that would stop them. The one who wields the dagger of Kethis was said to have been sent by their deity. He pled with Yuji to prepare himself. As soon as the tamer left, the assistant wanted to know why Stale didn't tell Yuji the full revelation. The priest said he did it to protect him. Meanwhile, Walter was informed of Stale's meeting with Yuji. This confirmed that the tamer was a threat. He then went to a power room and recited the same revelation, but in its completed form. The guide was supposed to meet their demise for the sage to arise. The following day, Yuji went to the church to talk with Stale, but he was told that they had already left. The priest and his assistant went deep into the forest to find Walter's hideout. Stale broke the barrier and proceeded where they were confronted by some cult members. The priest put a barrier around him and his assistant before taking a fighting stance. During that interval, Yuji found out from his slimes that the duo went into the forest. He sent his familiars to search for them and to recruit any slimes they found along the way. They came back with more recruits than he anticipated, but he still tamed them all. They led him to the entrance of the hideout where Yuji also dispelled the barrier to gain access. While that was going on, Stale had fought his way through the hideout and found himself in the main hall where he was greeted by Walter and his subordinates. The priest thought that his death was needed for the sage to rise and take out the cult. He was not going down without a fight, as he swiftly took out all members that attacked him. Walter knew that Stale was strong. That was why he planned ahead. The priest was suddenly attacked from behind and apprehended by his assistant. The lad was working for the cult this whole time and had been feeding his boss all the information. They didn't expect Yuji to be so strong, but Walter endured and can now move to the next stage of his plan because Yuji was around. He activated the curse he put on all his followers, so they began to turn into monsters. Yuji had already defeated the ones at the entrance who had turned. His final attack burst through the hall just as the assistant was about to finish the priest off. The assistant shot a fireball at Yuji, but he easily blocked it and freed Stale from his restraints. Walter was happy to see Yuji. He wanted to see his abilities, so he ordered the monsters to attack while he slipped away with the assistant. They made their way to a room that had a throne attached to a device. Walter sat on it and infused himself with dragon's grace. Yuji and his party had defeated the monsters quick enough for them to witness Walter's transformation. A normal fireball attack didn't do any damage to him. Yuji knew it would be a tough fight, so he placed a barrier around the priest. He then released a barrage of fire spells at Walter, but he dodged them with ease. The tamer equipped one of his slimes with the legendary piece of armor that Geigel made. He then boosted Proud Wolf and the slime. Their speed was too much for Walter. His slow reaction left him open to take a more potent fireball, which caused him to crash to the ground. The explosion did significant damage to his body. Walter absorbed some of his members to heal, and he kept on doing this as he sustained more injuries during the fight. Yuji noticed that he was getting stronger too, so he decided to try and dispel his legs since he was powered with Dragon's Grace, and it worked. Walter got agitated and threw punches like Luffy against Rob Lucci. Sadly, he didn't get the same result because Yuji blocked it with a barrier and captured him with his magic net. He then hit Walter with a fire spell that ended his life. Before he met his demise, he hoped that his and his followers' lives was enough to meet the criteria for the revelation. All the cursed members along with the assistant were absorbed by the device. It gathered their energy and summoned the previous sage. But he was looking a bit twisted. Stale realized that he misunderstood the revelation. It was Walter who had to meet his demise to allow this corrupted sage to arise. The priest disclosed that long ago, a sage rose to fight the blue dragon. He was overwhelmed and met his end without being able to fully defeat the ancient creature. Walter resurrected him by giving his life and those of his followers. The tainted sage attacked Yuji with one of his own fire spells that blew up the hideout. The tamer boosted his familiars as they went all out against the predecessor. He was able to easily block everything because he had infinite mana reserves. On the other hand, Yuji was quickly expending his mana just to keep up. After a few more epic exchanges, the predecessor was ready to bring salvation, so he activated the artificial rain machines that were scattered around the place. The sky turned purple as Dragon Grace rain fell, which caused all the monsters to enter a frenzy state. Yuji knew they were in deep trouble. Stale didn't see any salvation in what he was doing. It's disclosed that the cursed water was used as the basis to create this artificial rain. The predecessor confessed that his soul felt great regret for failing his mission. He wanted to break the cycle of sages being summoned to defeat mightier dragons. His answer was to destroy everything. Yuji was trying to figure out his next move when he was informed that hordes of monsters were heading for all the major towns he had visited. He was attempting to fend off the corrupted sage, while simultaneously stopping the monsters attacking the towns. Luckily for him, the adventurers in all the townships rallied themselves to protect their respective territories. In his previous life, Yuji was used to having to do all the work himself, but after seeing how determined everyone was to repel the monsters, he wondered if he could finally rely on others so that they could work as a team. He liked the sound of that, so he used support magic to boost all the combatants. They all felt the surge in power and used it to effectively defeat the monsters. Yuji could now fully concentrate on fighting the battle before him. He took a mana restoration potion that Dryad made for him, which recovered him enough to go a few more rounds. Yuji told the predecessor that he liked the way the world was when asked why he was fighting to save it. The tainted sage still wanted salvation to befall it, so he resumed his assault as Divine Strike was made available to Yuji. He used it to stun the predecessor, and the system allowed him to spam it, but not enough damage had been done, so he hit his dagger with a Divine Strike. This supercharged it to a level that allowed him to land a critical hit on the predecessor. The skies cleared as soon as his victory was secured. Yuji landed on the floor, exhausted but alive. By the evening time, Stale was in the church showing his gratitude. The tamer had left Ordarion before he could draw any attention from the cult, since they were still active there. He got reports of the residents in all the towns celebrating their victory. Meanwhile, the cult members at the Ordarion Guild discussed how Walter's summoning ritual went wrong, which led to his and his followers' demise. They contemplated informing their HQ, but one of them thought it was a trivial matter. He highlighted how the continent would be wiped out once a device called the Purifier was complete. They were doing this to defeat the Black Dragon of Ruin. Only the faithful could defeat such a beast, and the cult were sure that they were rightly guided. Yuji's slime caught the entire conversation and wondered when these troublemakers would stop. He was eating dinner at his campsite when a pack of monstrous tigers surrounded him. Naturally, he defeated them and went to collect the reward at the next town. The receptionist didn't believe that he took them out alone. She thought that he lost his party during the fight and was high on copium. The guild master came out and analyzed the corpse of the monster and concluded that he defeated it alone. She had heard tales of a magic-wielding tamer. At this point, everyone knew about Yuji's feats. They were all stunned that he was among their midst. He didn't know what to do next, since he wanted to stay low-key.